Anna Alvarez, Ren Bates, Catherine Dudley, Toby Perry, Eric Fuhler, Jeff Rasmussen, Lance Breed, Brian Holt, Christina Kelchner, Lisa Gorgon, and we have administrative support staff as well.
And we see their names too and smiling at us. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Today's board meeting, today's committee meeting is held in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order, allowing the board members to participate in standing committee meetings remotely. We're providing live audio and video streaming. And also members of the public can provide public comments in 3 ways: live via Zoom, by submitting an email or leaving a voicemail as noted on our agenda. This information can always be found on our agendas, which are posted on the district website at evparks.org. Do any board members have any questions on process or procedure before we get started?
No.
We're good. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Then we'll start with the first item, which is Roberts Regional Recreation Area pool renovation and an update. And we will be hearing from our AGM, Christina Kelcher, Lisa Gorgon, and Ren Bates. So welcome.
Thank you, President Corbett and the directors. Christina Kelchner, Assistant General Manager for Acquisition Stewardship and Development. So we are here today to bring you an update about the project to renovate the Roberts Pool Complex. As the board is very well aware, this is a very popular regional amenity, and the Park District has a goal of outreach and teaching children to swim, both as a recreational need and a public health need, and this pool does play a very important role in that. It also hosts our lifeguard training and is an important part of serving the public's need in that regard. We were here last March, is the last time that we came before this committee to give you an update on Roberts Pool. That was actually, I believe, just a few days before the shelter in place occurred, so it does feel like a very long time ago. But in fact, it was earlier this year. And so we have been working diligently on the design and the funding strategy. And so we wanted to come back today to give you an update on that. And the cost has, I believe when we were before you in March, we were at about a $7 million project. And the cost has increased since then, now closer to 10 million. I think we're at 9.8 for the total project cost, including the design and permitting and the construction. And the main reason for that update, for that increase, has been that the more we investigate and learn about the property, the more we discover needs to not just be renovated, but wholesale replaced. And so we were hoping to be able to use some of the infrastructure, some of the buildings, but with public health inspections and going through the permitting process, we learned that much of the infrastructure and buildings actually does need to be replaced. And so I do want to just emphasize that we may have started out with this project thinking that it was going to be a renovation of the pool. And the more that we've gotten into it, this is an entire complex that includes showers, restrooms, a park office, for staff to work out of, lifeguard space. And it's a whole complex that supports that recreational use. And all of it is 60 years old and has never had any significant renovation. And so we have looked at the cost of other pool renovations in the area. Everyone is unique, so it's a little hard to get apples to apples, but Lisa and her team have looked at those pools, and we have concluded that the costs here are in line with other pool renovations in the area. So it is a big expense, and just wanted to have the board think about all the other unfunded liabilities that we have and maintenance projects that we have across the district. And we came before you with Contra Loma, the repair that we did to repair the surface of the lagoon this year, and that will need another renovation, the Contra Loma, probably in another 5 years. That will be needed. And of course, we have Lake Temescal, we have Jewel Lake, and we have many other facilities that are needing significant renovations. And so, yes, Director
I
Wieskamp.
ask, I hate to interrupt, but
Sure.
did we look and figure out if this is still, since we're starting like a blank slate, is this still the best location for that area?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And we did look at that. The big advantage to this location is that it's an existing use. And so we wouldn't have to get entitlements or
Okay.
replacing what's there. And
Permit.
so, yeah, permits, exactly.
Okay.
Permits and neighbor issues, if we had a different location, traffic studies, all of that. And so this location is challenging because it doesn't have the infrastructure. It's on septic, it's in a hilly rural location. But if we had a more municipal location, probably wouldn't save us any money because of the entitlement challenges.
Thank you.
But yeah, very good question. We asked the same question. Director Rosario.
I just wanted to add to that. Roberts has a bus stop, and so people from downtown can access the
Which is
park,
great.
public transit.
And I'm sure you'd hear from plenty of people who understand the history of the place and wouldn't like moving it either. That's another thing to think about. Yes, Mr. GM. Oh,
I'm muted, but I think I'm good. This is our only pool in a highly urbanized area. We have Lake Anza, and there's no swimming at Lake Chabot, and we have many lakes in other parts of the district, like Lake Anza, but we don't have swim facilities like a Contra Loma or Shadow Cliffs, Don Castro. So this is a very important urban recreation. Also, many other swim opportunities have been closed by a lot of local jurisdictions because of cost. So that needs to be considered too. I think the balanced parkland issue was serving an urban area is very important here. Also, my firm belief that we can pass lots of resolutions and policies. I think even some of our union members have commented we need action to be equitable. And so this is a way to show that we're going to have a good facility, because a lot of the facilities in older urban areas are not well maintained. So we should be giving our public in this really urban area a high quality facility. It's just really expensive, but I think it's a very important part of our portfolio and what we serve, to not only talk to talk, but walk to walk, by providing high quality facilities for people. Because people who don't have or do have, many of those facilities are very run down because cities don't have the budget to maintain them. So I think having a nice facility up here is really part of our equity and inclusion. Thank you.
thank you very much. All really great points. Thank you so much. And I have some questions, but I think I'll allow AGM to finish her presentation. She might answer my questions before I get to them. Please go ahead.
Thank you, President Corbett. Yes, those are all excellent points. We wanted to come to you today. This is just an informational item, but we wanted to check in with the board, get any additional direction that you have, and really Lisa's going to go over the funding plan in detail. This is one of our Measure WW commitments. There's seed funding for this in WW. So it's a commitment we made to the voters. And also the 553 fund, we are recommending that we do take a significant portion of money out of that fund, about, I think, $3.5 million it is that we're recommending. And what we understand from Jeff and from Deborah in our finance department is that the 553 study, the study that went into creating the 553, which is our major infrastructure repair and replacement fund, identified specifically Roberts Pool and Contra Loma as the two largest capital projects that the fund should be used for. So we do feel that it is an appropriate use of the 553 fund. That being said, of course, there are a lot of maintenance needs across the district. And so we wanted to bring that funding strategy for the board to discuss today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Gorgon, who's going to go over the funding strategy and remind you all of the design of the pool. One of the key features of the pool is that it will have a lot more shallow area. which is, and you'll see that in Lisa's presentation, that is the highest use demand that we have. And so it will increase the capacity of the pool, the recreational use from that regard. So I'm going to pass it over to Lisa to walk us through her slides. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, good afternoon. President Corbett, Board of Directors, Lisa Gorgon, Chief of Design and Construction, and I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. And as Christina said, does that look okay, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. We were here in March, and that was kind of a lifetime ago, it seems like at this point. So we thought there would be some value in just reviewing the presentation this morning and just sort of give a refresher. So let's see. So Christina touched on this. How did this project originate? So this is specifically identified in Measure WW, has 1.4 million, which we've moved over into this project. We did that last year, and to update the pool and the facilities. So the facilities are really identified as part of that need. As Christine mentioned, this is a public health issue to provide the swimming lessons. We also have this focus on recreational swim, day camps, lessons, club sports, and we do use it for training for lifeguards and other water safety trainings throughout the district. So both, sort of in-house and out-of-house, front of house, it's a really critical asset that the district has to really help with both recreational needs, but also public health needs throughout the region. So we're approaching 95% CDs. We were in front of you back in March, and that's when we showed the design. I have some photos of that as part of the presentation, but that was really when we came to you and said, okay, this is our concept, our schematic design. Should we proceed with it? And the executive committee said yes. And I think I'd just remind folks, even Director Lane made the comment, it better be beautiful. So I think we showed a beautiful design back then. So we anticipate being ready to go out to bid in late February, and construction could start as early as September, which is really important because we wanted to start construction after the summer swim season, but when we have a couple months of dry weather. So that's the schedule on this one is, well, with all our projects, the construction season really drives the schedule. So what do we know today? As Christina mentioned, this is a pretty old facility, but it's existing and we have those entitlements. So it allows us to move a little bit quickly just with the permit, where we're just really looking at building permits here. As we dug into this project, we really understood that some of the electrical, sewer, were the septic, and the work that was really it was more than just some of this pool. It was really, there was some of the initial assumptions once we dug a little bit deeper and started talking with some of the regulatory agencies, especially regarding the water and the septic. We found out that more needed to be done. So as Christina mentioned, the costs have more costs. They were identified higher than we initially thought. But on the flip side, as we then dug in to find out, well, what were other pools costing, we felt like the costs were in line. So we know that the pool operation is becoming more compromised. Every time we talk to Jeff, he's finding more gravel. And so it's becoming a more precarious situation to keep this pool operating. And we know every year costs usually go up. So here's our beautiful design. So this is what we shared back in March. And you can see that the pool is basically, we're about doubling it in size. So the existing pool is about 2,700 square feet and the new pool is about 5,600. So, and we're showing 6 competition lanes with 2 cool down lanes. And I'm gonna see if we can see, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but right here, this is what and Toby's here, he can tell me what the technical term is, but basically this is a retaining wall underwater. So this side is all deep and this side creates a much larger shallow area. So this is the area, and you'll see, I think I actually skipped it on the last one, but with capacity, we end up often hitting capacity because of our shallow end. The deep end doesn't hit capacity, it's a shallow end. And that's what often, where we have sort of this at capacity in the shallow end, the deep end is often pretty empty. And so this wall here, which the lifeguards can use to help with their supervision of the site, but this allows that to really increase the area for that recreational area for lessons. And then this is where the pool warps down to come down and then gets really deep on this side. So, and then we can see a whole new building here. And so we'll look here what this beautiful facility is. So as Christina mentioned, the construction is about 8.3. And, again, just we want to be clear about what that is. The pool is about 4.8. And so that's demoing it, all new pool deck, expansion of that area, retaining walls, planting, the entry kiosk, fences, gating, septic, and we do need to have some ADA improvements from the parking lot up to the pool. And we have a pool house. So the pool house is here. And as Christina mentioned, our existing pool house can't accommodate our lifeguards right now to even change. So there's a little portable that is existing to support just even our staff to be able to change and do some of the activities to help them do their job. So what this does is it gives the lifeguards an office, their own changing room, kitchenette. It also gives park operations an office, green room, and then of course the public changing rooms. So we went over those plans back in March, but Toby's got them queued up if you want to look a little bit closer. The footprint of the existing building of the new building is just slightly bigger. It's about 670 square foot bigger than the existing building. So the new building is going to be about 2,500 square feet. And it's just, again, slightly bigger and moving towards the pool. Dee had asked earlier if the oak in the front will be saved. Yes, it will be. So we'll do a little bit of limbing of it, but it allows us to actually move away from that tree, which we think is helpful. And then of course the pump house. So again, this is replacing all the mechanical equipment in the pool and then adding some storage space to be able to operate it. So as Christina again mentioned, our funding strategy for this, we're looking at total project cost is almost 10 million. We have about 2.6 that's funded, that's in the project right now. And our need is about 7.2 million. And so this is our roadmap to get us there. We do have 2 million that's in the 2020 budget for aquatic facility improvements. So that's for this project that we have available. Christina also mentioned the major infrastructure and replacement, renovation and replacement fund, the 553. There's 16 million available unallocated right now in that. And so we're suggesting that we bring over 3.6 of that for this project. to get us to the 5.6. And then we know that there's possible grant funding available. And so when we put together this presentation, we were identifying 500,000 from it's a state park grant called the RIRE, or it's the Recreational Infrastructure Revenue Enhancement. And Jeff is also on this call, so he may have some more thoughts, but we found out that the district had been allocated 1.5 million from that grant. So we are identifying 500,000, but we know the district has just received an allocation of 1.5 million. And then also there's another state program, the Regional Park Program Grant, and we were anticipating that potentially we could get up to $1 million from that grant, but that funding wouldn't be available until 2022 if we receive any. We also didn't contemplate any money from the Regional Park Foundation. When we spoke with Director Rosario, he had mentioned some potential funding opportunities from local donors who might be interested in this. So that was a good reminder for us. So when you think about all of these, the secured funding that we have, and then the way that we're anticipating meeting the need, we feel like this begins to look a lot like many of our other capital projects where we have we're matching the district funds with outside funding. So I just wanted to share that. And this is a overview of the pool again. You can see the retaining wall a little bit more and quite an expanded site area here for when folks aren't in the pool. And this is just a summary of previous board actions of the trajectory of this project, moving it forward. Back in the fall of, or late summer of 2019, we moved money over from that WW into the project and awarded our architects to work on this project. And then in May or March, when we came with our schematic design, and then you know what, I think that part of that, the money that was in the previous, that's the state park grant. I didn't mention that, but that 1.3. So that's when we came in September to move that money into the program, into the project. So moving forward, what we're hoping is to be able to continue moving forward with this so that we can catch the construction window of this fall, and then continue to pursue grants and backfill with grant funding. And we would anticipate going out to bid early next year, and probably end of February, early March, to be able to award a construction contract in the spring, and then again start construction in the fall. I see the general manager is on. So with that, I'm gonna stop, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Does that sound okay?
Yes, thank you. I think there may be some questions, but I think the GM has some comments. Thank you.
I think one of the context is that we have lost a major swimming and training facility for lifeguards based on the repeated closure of Temescal. So I think that's really important to play into this investment decision, is that the lifeguards no longer do their lifeguard training there because they can't consistently program kids coming there. And that was a huge draw for kids, young lifeguards, junior lifeguards, lifeguards to come from the urban area, Oakland and Berkeley. And so that's really been a loss. So another reason we can't guarantee what's going to happen at Temescal. That's such a huge challenge for funding. But we also have the issue with blue-green algae. We have the sewer spills in Oakland. So it's just a less reliable facility for our aquatics. So this becomes even more important, and the opportunity to even expand it really plays into that. So it's just something to really take into consideration. It becomes more important regionally, not just in the park. And finally, just a reference that these grants are Prop 68 grants, which we worked so hard to get after 16 years of no state park funding or no grant funding. So it's great to see us trying to leverage our dollars with 3 different grant programs out of the Prop 68, and specifically the regional park designation is something we wrote and put in the bond measure. So I just want to acknowledge the good work of we all did, and particularly government affairs, myself and Doug Houston in Sacramento to get that money. So we get the money. We don't want to forget where it came from or how hard we worked to get it. So another big part of this. It's great. Thank you.
All right. Let's open it up to questions. I do have some questions. Who would like to ask some questions? I'll go last. Anybody have any questions? Director Rosario, I'm thinking you may have something to say about this.
Yeah, I met with Christina and Lisa earlier in the week, and I very much appreciate it, but something just came up. One question is, what other projects are we got awarded $1.5 million in the RIRE. What other projects are competing for this money within the Park District?
Good.
Mr. Rasmus.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Jeff Rasmussen, Assistant Finance Officer. That's a good question, Dee, and I would characterize it largely what we did with the Prop 68 per capita fund. So the projects in the discussion for that grant were the Tidewater expansion, the Tyler staging area at Pleasanton Ridge, and the campground renovation and restroom renovation at Briones. That being said, as Kelly Barrington recently said, there are no Friends of Sewer lift stations out there. Those other projects are largely like new public access and have other competitive grant opportunities for them. And on the timeline, they're further down the road where this project is ripe and ready to go, and it times out well with this grant. And then finally, this RIRE program is only eligible to local agencies that near the passage of Prop 68 pass their own park maintenance or park supporting measure. And maybe the general manager can talk more about that. So it has to be in the FF area.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if there's a possibility of squeezing a few more dollars out of that.
Spreading it around, that is the challenge too, of spreading it around and things like that. But also one of the concepts too is that if you spread it around too thin, you get nothing. So that's the other part too. I think it's a real marquee project for the FF area, but I'll also leave that for the committee's discussion.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do like your idea of looking to fundraising from that area. I think the pool has been there for so long and it has such happy memories for so many people that I think this is a place that sort of has a fan base, so to speak, that might be able to be tapped for fundraising, Friends of Roberts Pool or whatever you'd like to call it, alumni of Roberts Pool. I do think that there's some merit to doing some individual fundraising for that.
I agree. And that's something that the foundation should take up and will continue to pursue. On the other hand, though, at least from the grants perspective and the government grants area, renovation of pools surprisingly is not as attractive as new outdoor recreation opportunities. So as a person representing our grants department, I would say that Tyler and Tidewater are much more attractive, have many more opportunities than the pool.
Okay. And then is there any AA money we could use in here? We do have a little bit left in AA. That's
a good suggestion, D. We do have our West Metro where we pool the remaining funds. We'll look at the West Metro. I forgot. Thank you.
Huh, I brought something to the discussion. Amazing.
Money potential.
And then operational wise, I know in the old days, they used to have to back flush the filters and that water would go into the, wherever it went.
I don't like the sound of that.
Well, in the old days, we got away with a lot of other stuff. So what happens? Is that water? Is that back? Do we have to back flush now, or do the filters take care of all that?
Yeah, I'm going to let Ren talk about that.
Sure. Director Ren Bates, Capital Program Manager. Director Rosario, that's a good question. There still will have to be backwash. It's part of basic maintenance of a pool system. There still will be a dosing tank there, though. Currently, there is a dosing tank for the backwash so that the amount of backwash can be dosed to accommodate the septic system that is there, and that will continue. So there will still be a dosing tank and there will still be backwashing of the system.
So with the increased size of the pool, the septic system will be able to handle that extra water?
And so, yes, I mean, and it isn't actually, so the dosing tank actually modifies that, and just because the pool is increasing the discharge will have to happen, and the septic as it is a function of percolation more than the quantity. And so that field is built on not to get too much into the weeds, but it's very much compacted, and the fill there doesn't allow percolation such to code. And so that's part of the problem. It's not so much capacity as the percolation and this consistency.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
That answers all my questions. Thank you. Appreciate all
Thank
your
you,
work.
Director Rosario. Wonderful asset in your district. Director Wieskamp.
Well, that's his territory, right? I think it would be interesting to see what the foundation thinks about the fundraising possibilities in this area. I really do think that's good. It has significance for some people who've been there for a long time, I'm sure. And they know better how to go out and do some outreach to those people. So no, I think that was a good idea. The cost is monumental, but I do agree with the significance. And I can't think of a better place over in that part of the world where you could move it. So this seems to be the ideal place.
Thank you, Director Wieskamp. I agree. I think that is a great location, and I do think we'd hear from a lot of people if we decided to move it. And obviously, it's a really nice setting. So
the trees.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. It's not broken, so or we'll fix it a little bit. I do have some questions. Let's see, where can I start? So with regard to the starting of construction, I have a question. Since we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know, we're hopeful that COVID will start to be controlled sometime next year with the vaccines and all that. But since we don't have a crystal ball, is the situation flexible enough that we could start construction earlier if we don't have a swim season earlier in the year? I know, again, we don't have a crystal ball, but wouldn't it be a shame if we, the pool was closed anyway, and then we were able to open the pool in September because things got better, and then we were closing the pool. So I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility built in the event, we need to sort of bob and weave based on when opening can be or not be, whether the pool can be open or not.
Director Corbett, that's a great question, and I'm going to let Lisa respond to that. We have thought about different contingencies with COVID. So go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. Often as part of our bid document, we identify the first day work could begin. And so we'll probably want to be working pretty closely with operations when we're putting together our bid documents to understand, because I would imagine I would hope that we could have some sense of potentially having flexibility, but to be able to say if construction could start as early as, June 1 versus September 1, but contractors really like to have things lined out. And so it's really helpful if the more uncertainty, the higher the cost, the more certainty, the lower the cost. And so we would probably want to identify that when we went out to bid or during the bidding process about what the beginning start date would be. So that might be worth a good conversation at the leadership level about what our trajectory for opening the swim season would be before we go out to bid.
Lisa, can I add something too? Just one thing we proactively will be thinking about as we start the bid process is also procurement. We know that a lot of the equipment here is very specialized and due to COVID that there is a delay in the supply chain on these types of things. So working with our construction management firm that we'll be bringing on hand, they have a lot of expertise in this area too. So we'll be working with the contractor and the construction management firm to kind of come up with a plan in advance to make sure that once we do hit the ground, that we're hitting the ground running in as efficient a way as we can.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
Mr.
that was,
The GM has his hand up. Sorry.
Don't want to interrupt Lisa. She's the expert. We basically did the same thing at Contra Loma, looking at the timing.
Right.
And we were able to expedite that project, which is done, I believe, because we had to have it closed anyway because of COVID. So it's something we definitely need to think about. But I think the other factor is really Toby's comment on we were delayed over a year on getting the bridge for Lone Tree Point. So steel fabrication, any steel parts, those kind of things too are frequently delayed. Some of that actually had to do with the embargo or the tariffs from China. I did, while I have it, I'll just briefly, I wanted to mention the park supervisor that just retired because he did, Jeff Prowl, because he did a whole bunch of beautiful upgrades in the lawn area and the picnic areas and the historic gazebo type of a site. So it ended up being, we haven't really talked about it, but this is kind of the last piece of Roberts that hasn't been upgraded. We put new bathrooms in, new ADA access, improved parking, even improved the old ball field. So it's just in context again, this is the missing piece, the most expensive piece, but the missing piece of a lot of work that the district has done. And to, obviously we haven't talked to the foundation. This is a tough year for them, but we had the all access partnership with the foundation, and it was the Lions Club, I believe. Was it Lions or Kiwanis? Rotary. And so we've already had a history of a partnership, and it may be a great thing. Maybe the Rotary could come in and help because they're already, they did that whole all access. And that was the first one in the district. So something really to look into is a great opportunity because there's a history there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then I'm not totally clear with the presentation today. So we're going to still use the original architectural drawings, but we're thinking that we have to do more because we found that the facilities there's more rebuild than restoration, right? Was that the point of the presentation earlier?
Total reconstruction.
Total reconstruction. So does that mean the pool is total reconstruction as well? So it'll be redug and the whole thing. Okay. So since we're doing that, are we still using parts of the original architectural drawings, or will we seek to bring in new drawings? I'm guessing that's the case, right? So we're sort of scrapping, moving forward based on what we found.
Right. So that was, and I'll have Toby and Ren jump in as well, but that was what we brought to you in March, was that we understood that we initially were going to be renovating the buildings, and then
so this isn't a further okay.
Yeah, what is different now is once we got that okay from you, from the exec committee to keep moving forward, that's when we started to find out more information about the septic, as Ren just described, and some of the electrical upgrades that needed to be happening. So we had identified back in March that the buildings and the pool needed to be totally rebuilt.
So these aren't further changes. You're talking about, okay, all right. That wasn't clear. So
sorry.
No worries. So a couple questions with regard to that. I know I talked about solar at the last time and whether we could look into any technologies that might allow us to use solar and have some cost savings in the way we construct this looking forward. Did we find out anything more about that?
We, Ren Bates, Capital Program Manager, our consultant is still looking into some of that at this point. We're still honing in on sort of the electrical and all of the capacity that's required. So we're still looking into that and don't have an answer as of yet.
Okay, but is that a goal to look at cost savings and potential new technologies? Because, obviously we all know that heating a pool is quite expensive.
Correct. Yes, and we will look into that as an option. I'm not sure how much. I mean, if it's a yes, we will look into that.
Okay, and the general manager has his hands up. Oops, Bob.
Just a comment on the large array we have on the headquarters building is reached its 20-year lifetime, and so it's starting to really go down as far as what it's generating. And remember, as Jeff has said, we aggregate all of our energy use, and the big solar array at Shadow Cliffs offsets that. So we have to look. Number one, you're absolutely right. We need to make the most efficient use of equipment there.
Yeah,
so
my main point. Yeah.
But whether we do the expense of more solar depends on the kind of overall picture of what we're doing. One of the things we found out is, while that's a great thing to do, there's not an offset over a certain percentage. In other words, we're paying the money to build more solar, and we're actually just subsidizing PG&E into the grid. So all those things, that's why we have a consultant that looks at that. But the efficiency, this facility has to be, I don't know order of magnitudes, but it has to be greatly more efficient than what we've had from the 1950s. So
yes,
that's one thing. But the other thing is really looking again at what we do on the office buildings and other places to offset those carbon footprint issues.
Okay, thank you so much. And then my last thing, I don't know if this was discussed before, but are we going to continue to have a chlorine pool? Are we looking for chlorine alternatives that might be easier on the septic system? There's lots of new technologies with regard to that.
I'm going to defer. Toby's the project manager, so I'm going to have him.
Yeah, Toby Perry, project manager. Yeah, it is going to be a chlorine-based pool. One of the RPR architects, or small architecture firm based in Oakland, they're our lead consultant on this project, but their sub-consultant is Aquatic Design Group, who they're kind of a leading design group of pools in California. They've done pools all over, including in the Bay Area. And we've deferred to them in terms of the ways in which the pool design, as well as the equipment that goes into it. And, we have mentioned our desire for, as you say, looking at all kind of technologies, and what they've come back to is this. I think that in part because it's a large pool with a large user group, that this is going to be the most efficient, cleanest way to manage the pool. But
Okay.
really, we're deferring to their expertise on this.
No, that sounds good. Thank you very much. I was just curious. All right. And then my last question is, if we do have to close down the pool for a while, and COVID is in the rearview mirror, and I know this isn't a design issue, but I just hope that we can look at providing swim lessons somewhere else during that period, as long as, COVID allows us to do so. And whether that might mean having swim lessons at, a pool nearby, somewhere in the same area. I know there's not a lot of them, but I'm just thinking we don't want to lose a season of teaching people how to swim if we can avoid it.
That's a great
So I'm
idea.
just hoping we can look at something like that in the future. You don't have to answer the question. I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you. I know I always come up with questions that have nothing to do with what we're exactly talking about, but that's the way I am. Sorry. Director Rosario.
Yeah, I just want to second that. I think there's a pool at Oakland High School that's underutilized. It's been closed all summer. I used to swim there, but it's been closed. But anyway, that's a great idea. And then just as an overarching thing, a big picture, I see a Roberts, this complex of parks along Skyline Boulevard, Roberts, the archery range, and the Chabot Space and Science Center as kind of a gateway. It's the other alternative ways of getting people into the parks, and they're there to either go swimming or picnicking, and then they go to Chabot Space Science Center and say, oh, there's a Road Park here. So it's a way of introducing people via another attraction to get into the open space. So it's phenomenal. And one last thing is, hopefully we can take pictures of Roberts when it was first built. Maybe have an interpretive panel to show what it was like originally. So that'd be great. Historical.
Yeah, I think that's great, Dee. And I think that, you know, before it gets closed down, you know, whoever our historians, archivists are, look around and make sure we save anything historical that we should. That's a great idea.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, great presentation, very hopeful. All we have to do is find some more money, but sounds really great. Yes, I see AGM and Lisa both have their hands up. Who would like to go first?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I just, as a next steps, we are, we've engaged with a construction management firm to help us with bidability and buildability review. So again, the more we can lower the risk or the unknowns for contractors when they're bidding on it, the better pricing we get, the more certainty there is. And so we went through an RFP process and we got a proposal for this sort of pre-bid review, bidding, helping during bidding, and then help.
Uh-oh, Lisa just froze.
Wait, Lisa is frozen in action.
Lisa, you're frozen. So AGM will jump in.
Or I can try to pick that up. Christina Kelchner.
During control.
I think
we just want to make sure we are on good footing.
Oh, Lisa just came back.
Lisa, you froze.
You were frozen for a second there, Lisa.
You know,
And is
Oh,
she
you're frozen again.
Oh my gosh.
So what Lisa was saying is that we will be back to the board soon with 2 additional contracts. One for additional work from the architect,
since I'm a
and the other for construction management firm. And that's to help us get all the way to 100% drawings, to make sure that drawings are buildable and biddable as tight as we can make them, so we get good pricing in the bidding process. And then construction management will be to help us through the bidding process with bidding walkthroughs and questions that come up from potential bidders, and then to help us once we get into construction. And I did just want to say a word about construction management, because as we're doing more and more large complex projects, this is the type of work we see construction management contracts coming forward for many of our projects. And I just want to remind the board that although we have a construction manager, I forget what Dale's title is exactly, but we have a manager that manages our construction inspectors. However, we don't have construction management capabilities in-house. So that is something that we need to contract out for these large complex projects. It requires someone to be full-time on site all of the time, managing the projects to be sure that we're getting what we paid for, to be sure that the construction is happening in accordance with the drawings. So just a reminder that for these complex projects, that is typical. It's important that we do that, and it's not something that we have in-house. So just wanted to give the board a heads up that would be coming back soon to keep the project moving forward so we can go out to bid when we need to. And then finally, I just want to really appreciate Lisa Gorgian, Toby Perry, and Ren Bates. Excellent project team on this. And as you know, the design and construction department is managing many complex projects at the same time. And I just really appreciate all their good work to keep this moving forward and really feeling like the project's in good hands with them.
Thank you very much. I have one last question with regard to the consultant that follows the management of the project. Do they take the place of a general contractor, or do they manage the general contractor? How does that work?
Well, they do not take the place, but I'm going to turn it over to Ren Bates, who can give you more information about that.
Yeah, Ren Bates, Capital Program Manager, President Corbett. The answer to your question is they will act as an agent for the district and manage the general contractor. So in other words, what they will do is they'll run our meetings for us. They'll make sure that we get our submittals to us. They're there as a daily inspector to make sure that the bid documents, the contract documents that we enter into with the contractor are being followed and suited. So they act as our agent to manage the general contractor.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much. All right, board members, if there's no other questions or comments, we have Director Wieskamp.
I'm just going to say it's made such a difference at Dumbarton Quarry. I recently was talking to Coyote Hills, and they made a point of talking to me about how the forward progress, and they were pleased to see it happening. So I think it's imperative now in huge projects like that. I may be biased because I'm so concerned about Dumbarton Quarry, but I think it's the same here. This is a complicated deal. And so I think having that kind of personnel backs up our great staff and gets things done.
I know staff is smiling when you say that.
Well, they need help. Yay.
And Director Corbett, if I may, I think part of the reason staff is smiling is because one of my favorite construction management stories, and I think Ren may be able to share this, I'm not sure, or Lisa, that our construction management firm found that the kiosk was being built in the middle of the road where the RVs needed to be traveling at Dumbarton Quarry, and so caught that before it was too far down the road. And so those are the kinds of things that happen in the field that a construction management firm will catch for us.
Saves money in the long run.
Right.
That's right. The eyes on the prize.
Right. Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. We're very excited to hear that we'll continue to make progress towards this really great facility. Thank you so much. And all during this crazy year. Thank you. All right. So the next item is our 2021 Park Advisory Goals, and we'll be hearing from our head of GA, Eric Fueller. Hello,
Thank you.
Eric. Welcome.
Thank you. Eric Fueller, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs. And thank you for having us today. I know we're also being joined by our PAC President, Rick Rickard. And so he'll be saying a few things toward the end of the meeting. But I did want to thank President Corbett and the board for your appointments to the PAC. This has been, as everybody knows, a very challenging year. I think Rick has been steadfast in the leadership of the group, and just really value that and appreciate that, and very much appreciate Carlin Obringer as our vice chair. I want to make a particular plea or thank you to Sharon Clay and Yolanda Burial Knight. They put so much in behind the scenes to make these meetings run, and also to get all the materials out. And in this year, it's just been a Herculean effort, and they've just performed wonderfully. And I wish they were on the Zoom to hear it, but we'll make sure they hear it at our holiday party next week.
And you're welcome to come to the next board meeting and tell them that.
Yeah, okay.
And
well, this item will be before the next board.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So yeah. I so appreciate you saying that, because in running these meetings this year myself, I get to see the behind the scenes, and it's so nice of you to thank them, because they have just been steadfast and rock stars without a doubt. It's amazing what they've done all behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
And even to the extent of working directly with Rick and other PAC members. So yes, it's been it's been a remarkable experience, but they've really been solid. I completely with you, President Corbett. So we have a bit of a low tech presentation today, partially because some things have changed since your packets were mailed out. So if you'll indulge us, we'll pull up the document on the screen as it sort of appears in your packet, but with the changes. So what I wanted to just take a quick moment to go through some of the things we did this year, and I've color-coded, or we have color-coded the topics to reflect what didn't get met, which is in yellow, and then the agenda items and goals in blue are ones that were unexpected, largely due to COVID, but were not on our original on the PAC's original work plan. And this year, in terms of not meeting the goals and then adding in all the things that we did that were unexpected, it actually balanced out. So I think it was exactly even amount of things that we didn't meet. We had add-ons to sort of replace. So we've been very, very busy. It's been a surprising amount of work, especially given all the other circumstances going on in our community and in our world. And then this year, when we say we didn't meet a goal, the PAC suggested perhaps we explain why, because there's obviously a number of them that we didn't. And so on this first set of goals under number 1, which is really kind of our parks, operations, and programming broad goal, and then we have the sub goals there listed. The ones that are in yellow are all kind of related to the trails working group. And so what we ended up doing is not addressing them individually, but 3 of the members of the PAC are actually on the trail users working group. And Rick will be speaking to that a little bit later in the agenda. But that's really why those weren't addressed individually, because we're dealing with that issue more holistically. And then, as you can see, we added updates on the Emergency Operations Center and the operations of parks. And then in the second bucket, which is really funding, it's all fairly standard stuff every year. I guess the value and history of government affairs was a sort of a new piece. But the 2 issues that didn't get met with regard to the capital campaign, I think that's totally understandable. We all know that things in the economy have been stalled a bit, so that campaign is sort of in waiting. And then the trail use data and messaging, we actually didn't do that project because of the use patterns in our parks, and the more we're learning about them in a post-COVID era, I mean, in a COVID era. It's just remarkable to see the usage, and you'll be seeing a presentation on that in the future, but it's kind of put this project on hold because we want to be strategic about where we put trail counters and how we're explaining that data. And it's also a little bit a part of the trail users working group. And then our third category really is community engagement. And so the community relations plan and review of volunteer program, those occur every year. But all the work that Carol Johnson and the general manager and our team at Public Affairs did, and all the work our operations team did with getting signage out there and keeping people informed on all the protocols for park use, really just phenomenal amount of work. And we explored that quite a bit with the PAC, as you can see here. And we also explored how we were communicating, not just via our own website, but through other, elected officials' websites and emails, through social media. So it was really a lot of engagement this year, as you all well know, but it was good that the PAC was able to have some input and see all the great work that was being done. And then our 4th category, which really is finance, the environmentally preferred purchasing plan, I think that will come up next year. It just took some time, and we had a lot of other focuses on the finance side of the house this year. And our dog use report, that's one that Rick and I were talking about yesterday, that we really want to have a review of that early next year. And I think our Pup Pro campaign is something that we can be a Pup Pro campaign is something we can bring before the PAC, hopefully in January. And just as a reminder, that was a report that the PAC drove a few years ago under the leadership of Bruce Kern. So we really want to make sure that that continues to be followed up on, and the PAC continues to review it. And then the planning bucket, which is number 5, we didn't quite get to Crown Beach and McKay GSA property. I anticipate that coming back next year. And then we also did not get to the Southern Las Trampas, but we did have a conversation about the naming of Concord Hills, but I think I'll let that be all I say about that. The other issue that we didn't get to, which was a bit of a disappointment, I think, for staff and the PAC, is really looking at the operating guidelines for in the mission statement for the PAC. And the directive the board gave the PAC last year was to have an internal examination and come back to the board with some recommendations. And so, you know, as Rick and I have discussed, we're going to make an extra effort to work on that next year. So now the fun stuff is we look at 2021, and what we've done here is obviously continued the yellow highlighting with the unmet goal, but with the purple, those are new issues for this year, and not all of them were in your packet because a couple were added. The proposals were added by our meeting with the general manager, and then also the PAC's review in November. So obviously the first one there, wildfire protection, climate change impacts to parks. That's one that probably should have been obvious, but we're adding it for 2021, given everything that happened with regard to wildfires this year. And then in our category that deals with funding, we also have a report about to be released on economic and social impacts of park improvement projects. This speaks very highly to the previous team that presented to you all. I think there's like 120 projects in the works. And this particular survey was done with Beacon Economics, and it examined 93 of those projects. Some really interesting findings, and we hope to bring them to the PAC and the board early next year. And the reason that's in the funding category is because we have seen or heard the discussion both in Washington and in Sacramento about a possible, infrastructure, green infrastructure, climate related bond or legislation in DC. And what we learned from the recession about 10 years ago is you need shovel ready projects, but you also want to demonstrate how many jobs they will create. And this particular survey has done that. And the findings, again, as I said, will be presented early next year. And then as the board directed staff to take a look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in the internal review, the PAC asked for an update on that. And then there's also the external component of that, which is how we are engaging with the community and doing our messaging, but also doing our listening. And so that's another category that PAC was interested in including. And then just scrolling down to the purple items for now. And then with regard to planning, we've been informed by the planning department that Clayton Ranch should be available. And then the PAC was actually interested in having a review of the HCP. And I think that's timely. I don't think we've had that before the PAC for several years. So I think it's a good thing to bring up. And with that, I think what I would like to do is stop sharing my screen unless people want me to go back to anything that we've reviewed. So if not, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think I'll bring Rick on and let him make a few comments about the year and the future year. And then this is a recommendation item. So we'd like to have a discussion with the board and hopefully have a recommendation to move forward to the full board. So with that, Rick, would you mind saying a few words?
Welcome, Rick.
What?
Welcome, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Board members, Rick Rickard, Chair of the Park Advisory Committee. Eric pretty much covered everything that I would point out to you, but I'll just highlight some things that I think were important to our Park Advisory Committee members. As Eric mentioned, a number of our 2020 goals were not met, but largely due to staff constraints in many cases, because staff seemed to get directed in other areas due to the strange year that we had. I think the two areas that would probably be highlighted by our members as having been most important that we didn't get to are the trail issues, both the user conflicts as well as the e-bikes and scooter issues, and the dog policy update, because we had put so much work into the dog policy. It would be nice to follow up, see how that's going. And so now that things are somewhat more normal in the parks, hopefully we can get that done soon. The trail issues, Eric mentioned the Trail Users Working Group. That group is going to work primarily on design issues and user conflicts, largely on non-paved trails. There are 3 of us from the PAC on that working group, myself, Michael Gregory, and Adela Ho. And we will be reporting back to the PAC on a regular basis. And then hopefully we can also get e-bikes and scooters on our agenda so we can begin to address that, because clearly that's going to become an even more important issue. I've been bicycling on some trails recently, and not too often, but occasionally get passed by a speeding electric bike. And we obviously will have issues with that as we go forward. The other thing that I had hoped to complete in 2020 was to review and update the mission statement and our operating guidelines. We did not get to that, and I want to bring that back and work with it so that we can report back to the board and update those. I think it's been, how long, Eric? Many years since they were updated.
Well, I have been managing the PAC the entire time I've been at the Park District, and that's been almost 12 years. So they haven't been changed since then.
Okay, we will take it on this year. And finally, Eric mentioned the diversity, equity, and inclusion items that we added. That was a subject of quite a bit of discussion at the Park Advisory Committee meeting, and ended up in actually adding 2 items to our goals for 21. The internal issue, which is hiring and HR policies within the district, and then the external policies, not just as they apply to park users, but to the surrounding communities as well. So that's the input that went into the goals and agenda items that you see on the list. And so with that, I'm available along with Eric for questions.
Thank you very much, Rick, and thank you for your great work this year. And even though it's been a roller coaster ride of a year, and thank you for your patience and commitment as things changed, based on, the way we've had to do business this year and other responsibilities that staff has been doing. So thank you for all of that. Thank you for continuing to volunteer, and thank you for leading the pack during this time. I not to say too much, but being chair this year, I kind of know some of the things that you worked through. So congratulations. And it's, we appreciate the fact that, you're a volunteer and you spend this time with us for the betterment of the Park District. So thank you. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and all the rest of your Mary followers there.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Eric said earlier about staff, because Sharon and Yolanda in particular, and Matt and some others have just been terrific in supporting me so that we can get the meetings done in an efficient manner. I know you know that, Ellen, from
yes,
the background that goes into putting the meeting on, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. And let me open it up to other board members if you have any questions or comments or accolades for Rick. Yes, Director Wieskamp.
Rick, I'm sure you're out there on the road on your bicycle all the time. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to take on such a long list of goals, and some of them are not going to be easy to get through, but I think they're all worthwhile. So thank everybody who's serving, because, we all know that Yolanda and Sharon have just done a magnificent job dealing with the oddities of the year. So many thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Director Wieskamp. Director Rosario?
Thank you. Yes, this is a very ambitious list. It always is. And I'm amazed you got through what you could last year, because of, as we know, 2020 was a bad year. Question is, how often is Measure CC/FF brought to the PAC?
Their review, well, I'm not sure how much more Measure CC will be brought, but historically it's been every year, and Measure FF will be brought every year before until we need to extend it again. The reason for that is not only that, I believe there were ballot measure requirements for annual review, but it also helps with it makes a recommendation in terms of the expenditure plan. And so I don't know if Jeff is still on, but Jeff and Deborah bring that that item every year.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's really important because they are, I think in the ballot measure, it states that the PAC is one of the oversight for that funding. So I just wanted to make sure that that was going to continue, and Measure CC should be conclude until all the projects are completed. So that answers that, and then I think that's it really. Good luck on the mission statement and the guidelines. I think the board of directors have to do a similar dive as well. So thank you again for everything you've done, especially all the work you've done with Rick and I both sit on the Oakland DD Coalition, and Rick has been a major advocate for closing the Bay Trail gaps in Oakland, and so continue to work with them as well. So thank you so much for everything you do. It's amazing.
That may be a long career trying to get the gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a couple of comments, additional like question type comments. With regard to the community relations plan, tell me a little bit more about that. And will you be working in conjunction with the board of directors on that too? Because I think that's a very great project.
Well, I might not be sure I know which item you're talking about, but community relations plan is brought to the PAC every year by Public Affairs. And I think it's generally their work plan for the year, and some years have different themes. And I honestly am not 100% sure how Carol organizes that, but it comes out of her shop.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the recommend policies and programs that foster community engagement relating to both park usage and employment opportunities, particularly with youth and disadvantaged communities. Number 3. Okay, so public affairs. And then with regard to the PAC guidelines, as Director Rosario said, we do have great interest in looking at our board guidelines as well. So maybe there'll be some synergy in working together on some of that as well. And then with regard to the McKay project, I just wanted to mention, you probably know this, Eric, but December 8th, there is going to be a community input meeting put on by staff, and the website's up and running for the community survey and all that. I just got word of that this morning from Brian Holt. So just wanted to let you, oh, there's Brian right there. Maybe Brian can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if I could, I just want to clarify. Thank you for mentioning McKay. Yes, the McKay master plan website is available, and there's a public survey attached with that. That'll be available for the public to take that survey through the end of the year. So that's available on our park planning page on the website. But just to clarify, there is not an event scheduled for the McKay Avenue Master Plan. The December 8th event that President Corbett referred to is to highlight the progress that's being made at the Tidewater Boating Center, the Tidewater project, and the Doolittle Drive project. So that is going forward on December 8th. There's information on that on our website to highlight two other important projects on the Oakland shoreline. So just wanted to clarify that.
So there's no McKay meeting in December?
No, there's not an event scheduled currently on McKay. It's just the website was put out and a survey was posted, and then we'll be looking at having community engagement events following completion of that survey in the first part of the year.
Okay, keep me in the loop. I know you will.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. And Mr. General Manager, yes. Uh-oh, you're muted again.
My appreciation for Rick and the PAC for all the work they did this year. Being my last year, it's great to see all most of those things done, and the ones that didn't get done had a very good reason why. And to also Eric and his staff, and for really helping to work with a very important part of the district, which is our advisory committee. So thank you, Rick, for your leadership, and Eric, thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys are great. Thanks for sticking with us. Rick, please tell all the rest of PAC members how much we appreciate their work as well.
I will do that on Monday.
Okay, very good. All right, take care. Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, yes, Eric?
I just wanted to, Rick mentioned Monday. I just wanted to acknowledge we are having a holiday Zoom. And the board is welcome to participate. And it will be a very informal conversation. And we are honoring two folks who are leaving the PAC after this year. Julie Buren from Contra Costa County, and then Bruce Brubaker, I guess, who also is Contra Costa County, but was an appointee from actually from Whitney. So they're both departing the group, so we'll have a couple of openings for next year.
Thank you very much, Eric. And thank you. I'm assuming we're invited if we'd like to Zoom along with you. Is that, yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Historically, this would be a dinner that, the board and the PAC would have jointly, but.
Yes, I remember fondly last year's. We won't have to pull out our wool socks and our heavy coats and bring our cameras for some nice photos. However,
provide your own, own wine for the toast. So
we'll make do and then have an even better party the next year. All right.
Eric, where was Julie from? Who's appointing her? Which ward was Julie appointed from?
I believe she was originally appointed by Diane. So it's Collins ward.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. We're on to the next item, which I'm really excited about hearing more about.
President Corbett?
We need a motion.
Oh, so sorry. There is an R next to this item. Yes, I see. Okay, board members, this is a recommendation to the full board of directors. Would anybody like to take a motion to send it to the board? Moved by Director Rosario and seconded by Director Wieskamp. Board Secretary Feng, please call the roll.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
Director Rosario?
Aye.
President Corbett?
Aye, unanimous. And Board Secretary Feng, we love that Christmas tree. It looks very nice in the background. All right, so next item, which you can tell I'm so excited. I was ready to skip right over the vote. We're going to have a conversation about our climate initiative update, and it is being brought to us by Dr. Ana Alvarez, our DGM, and Catherine Dudney. So please welcome.
Thank you so much, Board President Corbett, and good afternoon, Board Committee members, esteemed colleagues, and members of the public. Deputy General Manager, Dr. Ana Alvarez, at your service. I am excited as well, Director Corbett, to join you and the board with an incredible team of dedicated park professionals as we re-engage in a focused discussion on the challenges and key opportunities that confront our public park agency as a result of a fast-changing climate. As we all know, 2020 has been a year of extremes of many kind, but certainly extreme heat waves, wind events, and wildfires, and it's coming to an end. And as it comes to an end, it's abundantly clear that we are facing the natural catastrophes of the future. I never thought that I would be living the mega fires that I spoke to back in 1993 when I embarked. So this year, California and the Park District dealt with the mega fires and the wind events that climate scientists projected for 2030 and beyond. I share this with you today just to provide context on the urgency to correctly position the Park District to ensure that, one, it continues to thrive under these ever-increasing events, two, to continue to protect the public lands, and three, to reposition our natural infrastructure as nature-based solutions so that we can continue to enhance the quality of life for the 2.8 million East Bay residents. These three intentional and strategic actions can only be achieved through the collective work of all of the divisions here at the Park District, all of the good people that bring amazing body of work and skill sets through multiple disciplines, and certainly, and most importantly, through the financial support and the subsidies from governmental agencies at every level. When we speak about the opportunity to meet the vision of the Park District, given this changing climate, we're speaking, tens of millions, if not billions, with, like the general manager likes to say, the B word, when we talk about how do we keep those three intentional strategies forward as we deal with the changing climate. So today's presentation is the second comprehensive overview of the Park District's past actions and current and future work in this area. The first conversation, if you remember, took place, I believe, in 2018 as part of a board workshop. So today's overview is necessary as we advance these strategic actions into the future, and mostly framed by the board's climate policy framework. If you recall, this is a policy framework that was back in also in 2018, and we'll touch a little bit on that today. Today also serves as the formal introduction of Ms. Catherine Dudney in her management role of the Park District's Climate Action Program, which is formerly known to you as the Climate Initiative. Most of us know and understand Catherine as a trusted go-to resource. Certainly during the pandemic, we saw a lot of Catherine, and we're very grateful for all of her work and all of her support as we embarked in keeping our employees safe. But what people don't know about Catherine, which I'm very delighted to say and I'm very proud, is that she has an amazing background in ecology and post-fire recovery, which is a tremendous asset to the Park District's Climate Steering Committee. So there's a lot to share with you, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with the Board Executive Committee. And with that brief introduction, we can start the presentation with Catherine.
Great, thank you very much. So Catherine Dudney, Management Analyst, and we are going to give you an update today on Park District's climate actions from 2019 and 2020. I'm going to start with a little bit of a history on where we have been and how we got to where we are, and then we'll go over our current work. And then from there, we will be looking at, I'll work with Matt Grawl and Brian Holt, who will be joining me to kind of talk about some of the projects that we'd like to highlight and showcase to you today. And then I'll turn it back over to Dr. Alvarez to work on our future work. A little bit on our history. So it should be obvious to you all, I'm sure you all know, but it's very important to say up front that core to our mission, preserving natural and cultural resources and providing healthful recreation and education, means that climate is central in everything that we do. So preserving, conserving, restoring, and stewarding our lands, that allows us to mitigate the effects of climate change and also to adapt for everyone who uses the lands, our people, our plants, and our animals. And how we preserve and manage the land today is how we connect people through recreation and environmental education that shapes how our local climate will be and how we're going to respond when it changes. We've acknowledged this importance in our master plan that identifies climate change as an institutional priority. The master plan commits the Park District to practices that prepare for climate change, track and monitor the response of ecosystems, and respond to actions through further protection of our natural and built environments. The board has made very clear through your board workshops that climate items are a priority and passed the climate policy framework in 2018. And we've incorporated many of the board's priorities into our performance plan, which is an annual plan that has a goal of planning for climate resiliency. As DGM Alvarez clarified, this is a district-wide commitment, and it is not held by any one division, but really is an integrated work of all of the divisions working together. This wheel is not large enough to say all of the various ways that the various divisions help in this way. But it just points out that we're all involved and highlights some of the key functions that contribute to governance, funding, planning, implementing, communicating, educating, all the various efforts that go in to help the Park District to deliver on the commitments that we've made related to climate. This commitment has also not been a one-year thing, and it has also not been a two-year thing since the climate policy was initiated in 2018. The divisions have been working together on these issues for over 10 years, as demonstrated through a variety of policies and studies, plans, and projects. These include things such as the Wildfire Hazard Reduction and Resource Management Plan and the Strategic Energy Plan that are still influencing the policies and actions that we are doing today. This graph is just to show you a little bit of the information that came out of some of those plans and put it into context before we get into our current work. Pulling information from our Green Fleet Management Plan, our Strategic Energy Plan, and a memo that we had commissioned on carbon sequestration in the East Bay Regional Parks. We can see here that the impact that our lands play in sequestering carbon is really significant. It's not, this graph is not to downplay the importance of some of the other items, such as reducing our waste streams, replacing our vehicles. These are best practices that as a leader in the field, we really need to be doing. But it also recognizes the incredible importance that managing and preserving lands play in our ecosystem, in our environment for climate. So just as an example, in 2020, we're looking at conserving or preserving about 1,000 acres of land. This is equivalent about the total metric tons of carbon of about 2 million vehicle miles on the road. So when you put it in that perspective, you know, every piece of property that we're acquiring is having a really critical role. And how we manage our lands can increase our carbon sequestration by 2 to 4 times. So it's also really important to keep in mind that we play a very important role in how we use our lands and communicate this impact to the public. I want to go into our current work and where we are. This past year, from October 2019 to March 2020, we had a climate intern, Reese Hahn, who I'm very proud of and did a lot of work of the information that you're seeing in the presentation today. Completed a summary report and kind of went through the history of our climate work, and we did a bunch of interviews with folks in the field to see where various projects were at and highlighting those projects. And kind of created this internal document to just document where we are currently. And again, a lot of that information is in this report today. So a shout out here to Reese and all the work that they did. I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Matt now to talk a little bit more detail about some of the big key projects we've got going on under their groups.
Thank you, Catherine. Brian Holt, Chief of Planning, Trails, and GIS. I'm just going to highlight a couple of our projects, and as I think Catherine did a really nice job of mentioning, you know, we really feel that all of our work is climate work and focused on restoring habitat, acquiring lands, adapting to the impacts of climate change is really central to what we do. So that's sort of a climate, looking at all of our plans through a climate lens is really important. I did want to highlight one of the projects that we're working on now is the San Francisco Bay Trail, the RAP project, that stands for Risk Assessment and Adaptation Prioritization Plan. This is a grant-funded project. We received a grant from Caltrans to basically start looking at our shoreline. And there's been a lot of work that has been done around a risk assessment around the bay through the Resilient by Design program, adapting to rising tides, San Francisco Estuary Institute recently released a climate atlas. And so we really want to take all that information and start applying it to our shoreline, and how can we best prioritize projects that we want to move forward and look at for adaptation strategies. So this will be coming forward to you at some point soon. We looked at a number of different places along the Bay Trail that we actually own, and we have some ability to implement projects for. And the whole idea here is to try to identify projects that we can then move forward to securing additional grant funds and actually a roadmap for how we begin to address our 50 plus miles of shoreline. So so this will be coming forward soon, and there's a project website that we do have available that I can provide the link for that. And just a lot of really good work from my staff and Chantal Alatori in particular in leading this effort. Next slide. And then we also wanted to highlight here, you know, as Catherine mentioned, land acquisition, habitat protection, and our regional trails. This is all key to climate resiliency. And if you could start the GIF here. We put together this little image. It moves a little fast. We'll continue to tweak this, but this shows the growth of the park district since the inception. So the green is the lands that have been added here. So you see through the 60s. And something I'd like to highlight is our general manager, Bob Doyle, started in '86 in acquisition, and you can see the amount of growth during his time as general manager. Just really significant contribution towards habitat preservation and recreation, but also climate resiliency in the Bay Area. So we kind of started looking at this in relation to Governor Newsom's recent executive order about protecting 30% of the state by 2030. So we had our GIS folks sort of dive in and look at, you know, how are we doing in Alameda and Contra Costa County? And you know, we're doing pretty good. Our property combined with, you know, watershed properties, state parks, and then, you know, protected private working landscapes. The East Bay is certainly a climate leader. So, so just really wanted to highlight that. And also our active transportation facilities, over 200 miles of our regional trail facilities. These are important carbon neutral transportation facilities that connect people to our parks, connect our parks to parks, and connect the cities to parks. So really important that we continue to move forward in closing the gaps in that regional trail network and completing that. So, so with that, I think Matt Grawl is going to highlight some of the big stewardship projects here. Yeah, if you want to, yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. Thanks, members of the committee. I'm Matt Grawl, Chief of Stewardship. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. So this slide is about the Hayward Regional Shoreline Adaptation Master Plan. We reviewed it in detail with the committee in June. And the project's nearing finalization. The plan has almost been completed and will be accepted by HASPA at the first meeting next year in January. But we're already starting to work on some of the projects in this master plan. We're working on the design of the Hayward Marsh restoration in the southern portion of the map. And we've also are partnering with the East Bay Discharges Authority because they have an interest in studying a potential for a horizontal levee up here at the Orloma Marsh adjacent to the Orloma wastewater treatment plant. So we're going to be coordinating with East Bay Discharge Authority and Orloma to look at what it would take to permit and design a horizontal levee here in the adjacent to the Orloma Marsh. But really, you know, the purpose of this plan was to help position us for funding for these projects and really understand what needs to happen within this area. There's already been a lot of planning, similar planning in the South Bay for the South Bay Salt Ponds project, but this project's a little bit larger in the sense that it looks at some of the industrial areas and the other areas that contribute to this small region we studied here. And it really demonstrates the need for additional planning around the Bay and coordinated efforts so we can coordinate our planning efforts to make sure our projects are working together. And this is a good first step for the district, but it's just one of a first area we could study, and this is just because we were able to get a grant for this area. We'll be looking for additional funding and areas where we can do more studies like this. I mean, and as a reminder, this is a 50-year plan. So this is looking at what we can do over the next 50 years to adapt to sea level rise. And so things will change during that time, but it gives us at least a place to start from. Okay, next slide. And then the stewardship's just been active working on several other things, the fire fuels management, as you're aware. We've been doing a lot of work on that, and we're also starting a lot of studying on the post-fire recovery in some of these efforts. It appears in some of the northern areas of the fire, at least on our property, the northern area, Morgan Territory, Round Valley area. Some of those areas didn't burn very hot, and it seems like the fire could be beneficial. And there are some similar areas to that in the Snow Ohlone, but we're really starting to look at that and better understand that and how to use that information we're gathering to inform our future fuels management actions. And we've also been working over the last year and a half on an ecological health assessment for the Park District lands. And those of you that attended the stewardship seminar heard a little bit more about that. But we've been working with other public landowners in the East Bay area to coordinate and look at our data collection to make sure we're collecting data in a similar manner, and really trying to look at all the data we've already collected up to this point to understand the health of the various ecosystems and ecological functions within our region. I think this could be a very helpful data set and helpful process to use as we start to assess the impacts of climate change moving forward. And then we go to the next slide, and I think it's back to Catherine.
All right, thank you, Matt and Brian, for helping on the presentation. I really appreciate your input, and also just very excited about the projects that they mentioned and some of the other ones that are happening throughout the district. Really well positioning us for future work in ways that is really meaningful and significant for climate. So this is a smaller program, but also very worthwhile that I wanted to highlight for folks is our little climate mini grant program for frontline staff. And this program was really developed as a way to incentivize, empower, and motivate people that are in the field who are seeing issues every day as a way for them to get involved and engaged in our climate initiative and come up with ideas for projects that would help make their parks and the people that they serve better and to benefit the people they serve. So the Climate Mini Grant Program is a $150,000 contingency fund managed out of Executive and Legislative Division. And last year in 2019, we received requests for 20 projects totaling $315,000. There were a variety of types of projects requested, things to help reduce pathogens, reduce waste, conserve water, reduce emissions. And in the end, $127,000 was allocated to various projects. And I'm going to highlight a couple of the projects that were funded through this little grant program. So at the Tilden Botanic Garden, we purchased 30 benches. These are to keep the plants off the ground and reduce the spread of Phytophthora, which can travel through water between plants when they're on the ground touching each other. They also got some irrigation. So in a previous grant round, they installed some large water tanks that could hold water during drought events. And they installed an irrigation system to connect those water tanks to plants in the garden. So if there's a drought and water restrictions, we can make sure that we protect our resources that the Botanic Garden provides. We also started a small tools electric conversion pilot project. So last year, we bought tools for Vasco Caves, Sibley, and Anthony Chabot from a couple of different vendors and a variety of types of tools. Just as an anecdote to share, there was an article in the LA Times that said running a leaf blower for 1 hour produces enough smog forming pollution as driving a Toyota Camry from LA to Denver. So the work that we're doing to convert these small gas powered electrical tools, both emissions and smog particles, is not only good for the environment, but it's very good for ergonomics. They're quieter, they're lighter. So it's a safety item as well. And we are working to figure out what the best products are so that we could expand that to larger use district-wide. Another one that have been really popular in our public surveys that the legislative group has gotten from the public is feedback to want more water bottle filling stations and 3-tier waste streams. So these are other projects that have been initiated. The water bottle filling stations there was funded last year, and there was additional money put in that fund during the mid-year budget. And there are 8 new water bottle filling stations on order to be installed in the first half of 2021. And with the waste bins and as part of the pilot project that was initiated on the waste bins, this wasn't under the mini grant program, but I wanted to highlight it here too as sort of a small initiative. 25 bins have been installed, public bins have been installed in 9 parks, and another 18 have been installed in park offices, interior spaces. So again, this is a program that is ongoing and expanding, but it's a way to reduce our footprint that we're happy to see the park district moving forward on. One of the other things that we've been working on are updates to our website. This was a project that our climate intern Reese took on in collaboration with Public Affairs. And the changes are based on a review and benchmarking study of other agencies and their websites. So we looked at Mid-Penn, Santa Clara Open Space, National Park Service, state parks, and some of the RCDs, and incorporated some elements from their pages on climate change, and are really trying to tie our actions that were identified in the climate policy framework to what the park district is doing in the field. And so we have a couple of new pages as well as a modification to our existing page. Our existing page is really focused on policy, and we're adding additional pages to talk about the climate hazards and how the park district is responding through action. So these are brand new. They're going to be posted. They have a lot of visuals and icons. So Public Affairs made some great climate videos a couple years ago, and right now they're just on the website as little links, and now they're going to be embedded videos in the website so that they're a lot more visual, and people when they go to the website will be attracted to those videos and will be able to see all the great work that Public Affairs did. Whoop, I zoomed away. There we go. So they're not posted yet, but we're going to post them soon. We just wanted to have this meeting with the board so that you would get a chance to hear about it firsthand before we posted those updates. And then this is the last slide I'm going to go before I turn it back to DGM Alvarez. Just wanted to say we did start our 2020 mini grant program again this year. We did a solicitation in January. We got about $20,000 worth of requests for projects in, and these range from improving irrigation systems, replacing more tools, various studies to study the effects of climate change, projects for waste reduction and tracking our waste diversion. And of course, as you know, COVID hit in March. That program was put on hold in order to allow us to plan for the future recession and also to prioritize COVID and then later the wildfires and the wildfire smoke response. So as you know, the Park District has been very busy keeping the parks open with lots of creative staffing to keep everyone safe while dealing with this unprecedented amount of visitation. Kind of parallel externally, climate legislation and funding has also been held or diverted to focus on the health and the economy. And I think Eric is on the line still too and can chime in when we get to Q&A if there's questions about what's coming up. On the bright side, all of this is an increasing awareness and acknowledgement. We've seen that in our public surveys as parks being an essential service for mental and physical health, as well as the importance of the parks in wildfire mitigation. And I think that this really is going to set us up well in the future for future funding opportunities as people begin to recognize more and more the important role that parks are playing. So I'm going to turn it back over to DGM Alvarez.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's great to see the original team members of the Climate Steering Committee, Matt and Brian, come forward. because they continue to do very important work, and we have done so much since the last time we've met. So the primary purpose of this presentation was to provide the board with an update on some of our current projects and work related to climate change. But as I mentioned in the introduction, this work is core in everything that we do, and we have to continue to focus on the future and what we can do both to communicate and advance solutions. As a park district, our solutions are nature-based, and what we do every day contributes to the quality of life, like I said, of the 2.8 million people that call the Bay Area home. And this includes providing parks as cooling spaces for people to recreate during extreme heat, protecting communities from catastrophic wildfire, increasing the health and carbon sequestration capacity of our soils through our public lands, through restoring and providing refuge and corridors that allow plants and animals to migrate and adapt to the changing climate. We are starting to reframe how we talk about our lands and how and what we do every day is relevant in how people relate to climate change. As an example, I'm giving you a critical example so we can understand how the magnitude and the gravitas of what we can do. The 1,000 acres of land that the board of directors authorized to acquire in 2020 while during a pandemic, those 1,000 acres alone sequesters carbon equivalent to the emissions from over 2 million vehicle miles driven each year. So that's how important the role that we play as we think about our natural infrastructure and position that natural infrastructure as nature-based solutions. We do have a listing of projects and needs, and I'm hoping that we can share those with you as part of the 2021 board workshops so that we can revisit those with you and help prioritize what we can be working on next. So in consideration of new projects, the Park District is staying current on the latest science coming from local researchers and regulatory agencies, such as the rising seas predictions, anticipated changes to vegetation and wildlife habitat, and potential effects to park users and recreation through increased drought, heat, and fire. In considering the possible short and long-term effects in our project planning phases, we can create a narrative that positions the Park District for funding opportunities, which is so critical, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. The RAP project and the Hayward Shoreline Master Plan project that you just heard from Brian and Matt are perfect examples of preparation that positions the Park District with shovel-ready projects that can be used to leverage external funding. Because like I said, I cannot emphasize enough that these are unfunded liabilities for the Park District, and there isn't enough in our reserves to really make a dent as we continue to adapt so that we can continue to thrive during these changing climates and the impacts of those changing climates. Next. So Lisa Bollinger is also a member of our steering committee, and she provided us updates on our legislative activity that will help us position for future funding and support. Unfortunately, Lisa wasn't able to join us today, but I did want to point to some of the specific legislation that our government affairs team is tracking and engaging to help position the Park District. Our government affairs team continues to advocate for supporting existing climate-related funding, such as the 2 federal programs, which I'm very excited to tell you about. Is the Climate Ready program under the CDC that looks at climate change and the impacts of climate change from a public health perspective model. So the health diseases and the mortality rates and who's the most vulnerable in understanding the impacts of climate change. Also, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program under FEMA. And this program is also a very important piece as we continue to understand the impacts from the changing climate. And so the BRIC, which is also known as, will support states as they undertake, it's about hazard mitigation projects in reducing the risks they face from disasters and natural hazards. We also have, there's also a number of possible new funding opportunities established mostly in the fall and the winter of 2019, and some came in at the onset just before the shelter in place for COVID came in at the legislation floor. And so we're tracking these proposed pieces of legislation that includes the Coastal Conservancy Education Grant Program, the Wildland Urban Interface Wild Risk Model, which takes a look at fire from a preventative mitigation, a preventative angle rather than a after the fact. And the Coastal Climate Change Adaptation, which also brings about legislation that requests and demands for to take a look at the coastal lines and the communities living adjacent to those lands from an infrastructure perspective, or the natural based infrastructure that they have. And there's also the Infrastructure and Readiness Program, which also does the same, looking at the natural assets that can be used as to build resiliency from these impacts. And there's also the Freshwater and Estuary Harmful Algal Bloom Program. And so on and on, there's many opportunities. And with the change of administration and with the current emergency and urgency of wildfires, we do anticipate both at the federal level as well as the state level to see new funding opportunities. And perhaps they may not be couched under climate change or changing climate, but rather they will be couched under creating jobs so that we can create a stimulus for the economy. Plays a big role through ecological restoration and capital infrastructure in creating those jobs, and also looking at transportation and infrastructure in general. So there's an expectation that the state also will reintroduce a climate bond proposal in the future, and which originally included, if you recall, in the governor's budget, $4.75 billion, and out of which 80% was intended to be spent on immediate risks from flood, fires, and drought. Again, it was about the mitigation and resiliency building, not necessarily about reducing global warming. Nonetheless, it all contributes to being able to thrive during these changing times. And the remainder 20% will have tackle slower moving long-term risks from rising seas and extreme heat. So the reintroduction may be more focused, like I said, on jobs and infrastructure with a nexus to climate change. And like I said, wildfire funding will continue to be important, and if not ever increasing importantly with urgency. And we might expect additional funding in response to the pandemic to stimulate the economy and focus on equitable health outcomes. So as we follow these changes, we can reframe our projects in light of providing essential nature-based services for health and safety. It really comes down to a health and safety issue. For example, air quality, as we saw, and we lived through what seemed to be a apocalyptic time when the wildfire smoke choked the Bay Area. So air quality, it's ever so critical, and it's tied to climate change because of the wildfires. And also there's the whole element of flooding, which upon very, very briefly. So all these pieces will resonate well with the public, our legislator, and our funders. And I just want to make also highlight quickly the California Natural Resources Agency Cutting the Green Tape Initiative. And this is coming directly from our Secretary, Wade Crowfoot, and other leaders that have launched late in December 2019, an initiative to improve permitting and funding efficiencies for ecological restoration and natural resource stewardship. So again, positioning those natural assets as solutions, nature-based solutions, or working on that natural infrastructure. Most of the projects that we see from time to time here at the district have been significantly slowed down because of regulatory permitting challenges. And so now our Secretary Wade Crowfoot is saying, let's cut through the tape and let's create efficiencies in permitting and regulatory compliance for environmental beneficial projects. And let's maintain the commitments to California pertaining to environmental regulation safeguards and allow for safe agencies to meet statutory requirements while more easily permitting efforts that seek to build resiliency in our local communities in our state. And I bring that to your attention because while it's a very exciting initiative that came about late in December, it certainly models after what we recently accomplished with the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority under Measure AA. So the board of directors played a significant role, and it's one out of I believe 5 funding partners with the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority for BRIT, which also streamlines the permit, creates efficiencies so that we can put into play very quickly ecological restorations of those wetlands in time for them to be able to, in essence, provide those services, those natural services that we need, such as flood protection. So for the Bay, we have about 10 years, a little bit less than 10 years to do ecological restoration before the window closes. And what will be left for the Bay Area is to erect levees, man-built levees. And we will be looking more like Louisiana and New Orleans and other communities. And that's why BRIT came about, and the board of directors took the policy direction and the policy decision to subsidize BRIT and to be a member of BRIT, which is very, very critical. And with that is the conclusion of our presentation. We apologize if we went a little bit longer than anticipated, but I think it deserves the time to understand these issues.
Well, thank you very much. This was an outstanding presentation, and there's so many things to say and respond to. And I'm particularly, and I'm going to go first this time. And I'm going to, I want to just say this, the first thing I would say is pre-COVID, and Dee, I'm saying this for you too. When you first become president, the staff comes together with you and asks you what sort of issues you'd like to focus on for your year. And this was pre-COVID. And so, as you might imagine, I was very interested in focusing on climate change and being able to have a platform to discuss that throughout the year. COVID happened, and it got a little bit in the way of having more of a platform on discussion of that issue this year. But I'm so excited to see that we had the opportunity to have this presentation at my last executive board meeting. Thank you so much for making that happen. And I hope, Dee, you will continue, I know you will continue on work in this very important area. I wanted to mention too that I think it's so important, and DGM Alvarez, it's so important that you brought something up that is really a very, it shows a deep meaning of where we stand with climate change and how the public views this. Policymakers throughout the world, and obviously in the state and at the federal level, even sometimes when they might be in the minority at the federal level, know that the public is crying loudly for us to do whatever we can to slow climate change. And some of it's because of people's personal philosophies about the environment, but it's also very, very practical because we're talking about stopping fires and preserving our infrastructure. And those things, of course, are very close to us at the Park District because both those two things are things we're concerned about too. But we care about it from a much broader level as well. And I was so happy to hear Brian Holt say that all our work is climate work, because I so agree with that. And I've been frustrated that we don't speak to that. We do all these wonderful things, but we don't say, we're doing this and this is how it impacts climate change. So I'm just so happy to hear this. And our Park District is is of such a renown and has such a great reputation that we can be leaders and we can be very important voices in this discussion. And I think that this points that out. So thank you for all of that. And then just real quickly on the presentation itself, Deborah, Catherine, would you do me a favor and go back to, there's 2 slides I'd like you to go back to for a moment. And one is, there's a slide that shows how all of our departments are involved in some way in this very important work on climate change. Could you bring that one back up? And then I'm also going to ask you to bring up the one on the board policy timeline. Yes, I just wanted to focus on this for a second because again, it emphasizes the fact that everything we do here at the Park District has some impact, and so many, our whole team is actively involved in this. And it's so nice to recognize that and appreciate the members of the climate task force too, many of you who are on the call today, for the work you've been doing this year. So thank you. I so appreciate it. Even though I didn't get to go out and talk to the public about this like I wanted to this year as president, I so appreciate the work that you've been doing to send this message. And, I just appreciate the work you've been doing. So thank you for that. And then also the other slide with the board policy timeline. Thank you so much for tracking, again, all of these various things we've been doing, how they do connect to a fight against climate change and how they do make a difference. And I truly appreciate that slide showing carbon sequestration as well. The 2 times I did get to go out and talk this year at the opening of John Sutter Regional Shoreline, Judge John Sutter Regional Shoreline, and Bay Point. That's what I emphasize, the discussion and the importance of every time we set aside a park and we save land for the future, we're allowing an opportunity to capture and keep carbon and to not allow development that would increase carbon. So every time we do something like that, we make a difference. So all of those beautiful acres of land, you also saw on that map, showing the work that our acquisition department has done and our general manager has done over the years, each and every one of those actions has had a positive impact. So thank you. And of course I could go on and on about this issue. So thank you so much for bringing it to us. The last thing I will say is, Catherine, when you were speaking, you gave me some ideas for board contingency funds. The board is having a little bit of discussion of how we spend our money at the end of the year. And I appreciate the fact that you brought up some items that maybe we can put on the list and see if people are interested in them. The electric conversion of equipment from gas equipment, I think, is something really important. And it sounds like a place where we might be able to put some money towards that would have a positive impact. And then also the water bottle filling stations, I think, would have such an important impact as well. It's not just about people getting water, but it's about people not buying plastic bottles and leaving them in the parks or leaving them to float around in our oceans. So thank you. You've given me some good ideas for that as well. And with that, I'll conclude because otherwise I'll talk for another half hour. And I'll see if other board members would like to chime in.
I'll let the next president speak next.
Director Rosario, soon to be president, thank goodness.
This is a great presentation. This presentation, as well as the presentation that Brian and Chantal gave at the City of Alameda regarding RAP, I think those should be highlighted at the next stewardship seminars, because that seminar is so well attended by not just people that come to the board, but employees come to that one in droves. And I think these two presentations kind of tie everything together of what everybody is working towards. I think it would be great for the employees of the Park District to see that. I think it would be inspiring. It's definitely inspiring for me to see this. So thank you for all of that. Just one, I know that the forest conversion from eucalyptus to redwoods at Sibley is incredibly popular with the constituents and the crew. And I would like to see more of that, especially in Redwood and Roberts. if there's a possibility for that. And then just a technical question on the, if anybody has the answer, is on the water bottle filling stations. Do those require electricity?
Director, sorry, I don't have the answer, but perhaps AGM O'Connor. I think he was here.
Is he here?
No, he
I can
left.
ask later.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. And then that's pretty much it. I thank you so much for this. I mean, I think, like I said, I think this presentation really ties in what we do as a park district, and congratulations on being able to give that kind of an overarching statement to our. It's actually an overarching. It gives visualization to our master plan, really.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So thank you for that. Very well done.
Thank you.
Director Wieskamp, did we leave anything else to say?
Always good to come last, right? Thank you so much. It was illuminating, and I think the more who can see it, the better. I guess I'd like to bring up a couple of things. I love the idea of our staff members seeing a little project that can be effective with this. I'm thinking right now of out at Vasco where the workshop burned and they've just finished the permits to clean it off. Why can't we sort of reach out to them and see, you know, they did that great rainwater project from the roof and so on. So they think in interesting terms. Why can't we reach out to them and see what they can do with the new workshop that would be sort of using some of these standards? Give them some money for this. I think that is extremely worthwhile. And the other thing I'm thinking of is what can we do about something that suddenly comes up? The N3 ranch burned, and that everybody tells me is potentially going to have a really negative effect on Del Val. Is there any way we can reach out to anyone and have our staff look at it and say, what can we do to protect the lake? I don't know who it would be or what, but I think it's worth doing. I know that staff is really concerned about it, rightfully so. And I'm sure those that use the lake would be very concerned. But anyway.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Director Wieskamp. We do have Matt Grohl and AGM Kelchner. So I'll defer to them to answer and it's going to be about water quality issues.
Sure.
That affected all the tributaries and all the watersheds. But go ahead.
Yes, I'll just pass it over to Matt. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, if you've got an answer or have we reached out, is there anyone we can reach out to on that? And
yeah, I mean, we have been doing that. Now, I'm not sure whether we can deal with the magnitude of the problem, but we're really trying to understand what the issue is. We have been in conversation with DWR, about our monitoring plans. We're looking more at the uplands and the ponds, but we have shared our monitoring plans with them, and I believe they will be doing some monitoring also. So we plan to really look and see, as things are happening and what we can do. So we have the same concerns and we're reaching out. We've also talked to the water board about our monitoring plan, but and I think a lot of the state agencies are looking for future grants. They don't necessarily have money available now, but they are letting us know about certain grants as they become available to help with some of this post-fire recovery. So we're going to watch it and hopefully we can take some action if there's an action that's possible. But the scale of what we're looking at right now is pretty challenging.
Well, I just simply think that all agencies, we don't have enough money to do all of this at once. I'm being pragmatic about it, but this can have devastating effects.
Yeah.
And so the more we can say, where do we put our money first to be most effective? And it's not our land, but some of it potentially would become that part that's in this county. And the county is already, I think, the committee that controls some of the waste management money has voted to put that toward the purchase of the N3 ranch. So I assume the county would be interested and we could work with them potentially to do something. But the public is sometimes very much afraid of this whole conversation. And so I think the more we can bring it to terms that people easily comprehend, and to me, that's projects, that they can see it. and say, yes, this is recreation. Yes, at the same time, it's a twofer. We're protecting, and keep emphasizing that. Catherine, I thought you had just so many good points. But again, I believe if the public understands things better, it helps us. They love the parks already. And so if you say, hey, we've got an added bonus here, and we're thinking before we do. Somebody the other day asked me about the bike trail on Doolittle, and I said, of course we're looking at climate change. We want to make sure that that's a good project that we're spending a lot of money on, and so is Caltrans. So good job. You've got a monumental task, but the board is very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Wieskamp. Director Rosario, soon to be President Rosario.
Seeing Matt just triggered something, and it also ties into the climate change funds. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a new pathogen about that's killing acacias. Apparently, it's anecdotally, it sounds like it's spreading from acacias to eucalyptus and now affecting some native vegetation as well. So that's our next disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, and we're very aware of that, and we've been engaged with several state and federal agencies that are looking at this and trying to understand what is actually happening. We have sent out a notice to staff to avoid cutting any of these dead stands right now because there's some concern about seeing those dead trees, cutting them, and then spreading the pathogen. But we're trying to get a quick answer on that because we also want to take some action if we can prevent the spread. But it's very concerning. I know we've talked a lot about phytophthora. Well, this is a new exotic pathogen that's, it's just in this area, and we're not sure about. I think it's related to pistachios. I mean, it is and I think it's how it came in as a pathogen that I think is somehow introduced either through production, but it was introduced found in Southern California about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it's quickly made into the northern part of the state. And so we're very concerned just about the rapid spread, and we're trying to understand really how to respond. So, but thanks for the question because it's something that's very concerning.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it just complicates.
And especially once we hear moving to native vegetation, it's like, oh no, it's going to complicate our potential for fire risk. So we talked about our last fuels meeting. We're hoping to get a quick answer so we can address these sites.
Great, thank you.
AGM Kelchner has her hand up too.
Thank you, Director Rosario. I just want to say thank you for the question. I think that pathogens, plant pathogens is going to really need to be a focus in 2021 because just what's happening with the COVID world, with humans, the same kind of exotic things we haven't seen before that are extremely contagious and lethal is happening to vegetation. And so that's really going to need to be a focus, and we'll plan to bring that forward to Natural Cultural Resources next year and really we need to get on top of that next year for sure.
Yeah, and continuing our work on invasive species like broom and past pathogens like sudden death, oak death, all of that's out there. So it's 2020 for you.
My turn.
Catherine has her hand up too.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the pests and pathogens. We included that on our website update as well as a climate hazard. And the link Matt mentioned tying the dead trees to wildfire potential increase, but also just the thought that these pathogens are on the rise in part because of climate change. As plants get more stressed because of drought or because of heat, they're more susceptible to these pathogens, and then they're spreading more. And then some of the pathogens also do better in these changed conditions. So there is a nexus there to this initiative. And we have included it in our response to it in our webpage updates. So I just want to know that we are talking about it.
And Catherine, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's another aspect of this presentation, the fact that we're using our resources and our ability to collect this information and share it as public education, as we do so well for COVID as well. But it's such another important piece of what we do, educating the public about what's going on and trying to do what we can to slow down some of these things. So Catherine, thank you. I saw another hand up. Oh, it's Dr. Alvarez.
Thank you so much, Director Corbett. And just to answer your question, Director Rosario, we did get the answer. We don't need to use electricity for the water filling stations.
Great.
And then to end in a good note, because climate science can be overwhelming and at times even depressing. We're hoping to end 2020 in a very good note with the board operations committee, where operations is bringing forward the completion of the solid waste management study that has identified the actions to reduce our stream waste, or to eliminate or reduce what we put into the landfill. So that's very good news, and I'm sorry that Jim is not here, because this has been a large undertaking that through the Climate Steering Committee 3 years ago. So it's coming to a completion. And they did that while delivering parks for everyone during the pandemic. So truly appreciate that.
I have two last little points. One is, I so love what Brian said. I'm going to say it again. All of our work is climate work. I know we are East Bay Regional Park District, we are EBRPD, but I think we need to highlight that too. All our work is climate work. I think I'd love to see that somewhere. And then I also appreciate, again, the deep understanding that, policymakers are looking at climate change as a threat, and will be looking towards making funding available, even with tough times. We'll be looking towards making funding available. And I'm glad to hear that we're on top of that and paying attention, and the work in our government affairs office as well, supporting and advocating for legislation. And there's even some sunshine at the federal level too, where some things may change. So thank you all very much. Just a great representation of what the Park District is all about and how we work together as a team on really important issues. So thank you for that. So with that, that's our last item, and it's time for public comments. Becky, you're muted.
President Corbett, we have no public comments at this time.
No public comments.
Wow. They're all out Christmas shopping.
Yeah, because we made so many ourselves. We invaded that space. Well, thank you for that. So it's now time for board comments. Board comments, anybody? Soon to be President D. Rosario.
I just wanted to thank everyone for these great reports. It's all the committees I've been on, they're all important, and this is definitely a very important committee. What I'd like to do is kind of give thoughts to the future of what I'm thinking is that I think what I alluded to earlier was that, yes, I think the board of directors need to go over our board operating guides and put some fresh eyes on that. That document's very old, and we're also going to be possibly discussing some realignments as to reporting to the people who report to the board directly, yeah, I think we're going to have some really interesting discussions in this coming year, and we are definitely in a mode of change. We're going to be under Carol Victor's steady hand as our general manager goes into the sunset, and we'll be looking forward to the selection of a new general manager. Very exciting and at the same time scary times, but hopefully we're looking forward to a brighter future, and we're definitely going to be, as a board, we're definitely going to be having a lot of discussions. So I like discussions, and to have them open as open as possible. That's kind of like how I run, and the more discussion, the better. So with that, I appreciate the leadership of President Corbett. She just opened my eyes to how leaders think and do things around obstacles, and it's just amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And I always appreciate our past and directors who've been here the longest, because they have insights to things that I had no idea. So it's great, and it shows that we also need patience when we try to go forward with things and projects and ideas. And yeah, I think overall, I think we've gone through this crisis of 2020 relatively well. I think that's a tribute to our staff, and the resiliency of the board, and we are better for it, I think. And I'm looking forward to even better times, and hearing some great ideas. So thank you to everyone for a great year on the executive board committee. I look forward to being president next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee. Director Wieskamp.
Such enthusiasm, Dee. We hope we don't wear you down too fast. The next year is going to be, hey, come on, I'm hanging in there on Dumbarton Quarry. Staff is promised.
I'm gonna finish that out.
You know, we're going to see those plants out there and all those trees and real people coming in and taking advantage of that location. I appreciated today's last executive committee meeting for myself. And as always, staff gives us lots of information and does their best to answer our crazy questions or requests for the future. So I appreciate that. And as a side note, because I like art, I loved the tree. I don't know how you're going to use that, but a lot of people are like me and they like to look at nice things. And that tree, I want to find out who did it. I know some members of staff did it, and take advantage of that and sort of accent the positive in moving forward on climate change. There's good things to preserve and there's good things to look forward to. And I think that's what we're trying to do. Don't let people get negative about it, but positive. But it's going to take a lot of money, guys, a lot of money. So it's going to be an interesting year. And I'm personally hoping for a shot in my arm as soon as possible. I want less seeing you on the computer and more seeing you in a park.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Director Wieskamp. You know, one of the greatest things about the executive committee is that it's made up of the outgoing president, the president, and the incoming president. So we really get a chance to get to know each other and learn from each other, and really form a bond. And so it's been a special year. I want to say that I got to learn some very important things from Ann Wieskamp, who's been here much longer than me, who also has an outstanding record of public service even prior to coming to the Park District, that it's important to be strong and persistent and positive. And I learned that from you, Ann. And it's okay to ask a question, no matter how tough it is, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you, Ann, for that. So it's really been a great year. And I wanted to focus on just a few things. One is we've had some very heartfelt conversations in this committee this year. We've had some discussions about equity and fairness, looking at our district, looking out into the broader world, looking at our ability to respect people's history and their culture, in difficult discussions where people came to us and said, please don't forget our history. Please don't set it aside. People have done that in the past. We're looking to you to respect our past histories. And we saw that in our work with our Indigenous people who were here long before us, and our wonderful advocates on behalf of the Port Chicago 50. And that was, I think, one of the most heartfelt meetings I've attended as a board member. And I wanted to touch on that. So I look towards the future, into the next year, with the president at the helm, where we can have some continued discussions, quite specifically on how we do recognize Indigenous peoples and the impact and all the contributions and their history on the lands that we love and we care for. So I'm hoping that's something that President Rosario will be looking at in the future. And then just a couple of other sort of specific things. I did have a conversation with Carol Victor to make sure I dotted my I's and crossed my T's. I am very interested in making sure that the board looks carefully at our board policy guidelines. We've discovered as we've gone through the year that there's a few things that are not written that probably should be, and there's probably some things that need to be updated. And so I'm going to ask that there be an ad hoc committee of the executive board be appointed to take a good look at the board operating guidelines. And that would also include a nice strong look at efficiencies in board meetings. I know Anne will like that.
Well, I think we will all like that, including staff.
And I'm going to ask soon-to-be board president Dee Rosario to serve on that with me. And I'll be glad to share with you the things that I've learned as a digital president for the board of directors. So if you will join me, I will appoint that committee. And then the other thing, let's see. Oh no, I actually think that's it. I think I did my whole list. So in closing, it has been, it's just been a pleasure working with the two of you this year. And it's been a pleasure working with our staff. And, we do amazing, wonderful work. And sometimes we just take it for granted. And we do need to do more to celebrate the great work we do and support the people that work so hard to make this park district hum. It is really, truly an amazing place. And that's because of the people that we all work with together here. So thank you all. And I'm going to drop the gavel on the last executive board meeting of 2020. May 2021 be a beautiful year for all of us, especially our new president. Thank you all. Oh, yes. And of course, we have general manager comments.
Yes. Right. Thank you, Director Corbett. Our GM is no longer here with us at this meeting, but I do wanted to take a moment under this item to say how much I've enjoyed partnering with General Manager Robert Doyle in staffing this board committee. And I look forward to joining Carol Victor as we begin 2021, where we're hoping to work with the executive board committee on developing an agenda plan for 2021 so that we can see the agenda items for the entire year, similar to what we do with other board committees. And then also I want to take a few moments to thank the person that keeps us all together, and I owe her my most sincere gratitude, Becky, for staffing this committee.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing, and she keeps us all in track.
Oh, thank you. I have to say, it's the learning curve for everyone. Being in this virtual world, I thought setting up lunches and setting up the dais was difficult.
Those were easy times.
A lot more steps, but I feel that as we have evolved into this virtual world, having these meetings virtually is a lot more efficient than ordering food and picking up food and cleaning up after.
Yes, there's some silver linings as well.
Oh, but it's so less personal.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. But I do appreciate the efficiency. I've hardly used any gas this year.
Yeah.
I know. You just missed the cookies.
That's,
Cookies are,
I missed the
they're
cookies.
very important in keeping everybody happy up there. And cake, gods. Think of the calories saved.
So last word goes to the DGM.
Yeah.
No, that was my concluding report under the general manager item.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Be well, everybody. Take care.
Kudos to Matthew and Sydney.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Thank you to all our